Okay, so there's been some pretty stunning news coming out of South Asia this week. Reports that the Pakistan Air Force actually managed a successful strike against an Indian S-400 system.
Yeah, I saw those. It's definitely the kind of headline that grabs your attention. Almost a David versus Goliath feel, if the reports hold water.
Exactly. And the specific focus seems to be on, well, neutralizing a Russian-made S-400 Triumph, operated by India, right? And the location mentioned is Adampur Air Force Station.
That's the one named in the reports, yes.
So that's what we're really digging into today. We want to get past just the headlines and, understand the tactics they reportedly used, the specific weapons, and what this could all mean, bigger picture, for military strategy, for technology globally.
Right. We've got the news reports here, and the goal is to sort of unpack what allegedly happened.
Yeah, unpack it, why it might be significant, what questions it throws up about air defense in the future.
Okay, so the core claim, the heart of it, is that the Pakistan Air Force used saturation strikes. We're talking CM-400 AKG hypersonic missiles.
Hypersonic, yeah. Launched from their JF-17 Thunderjets.
Exactly. Launched from the JF-17s to, well, disable this Indian S-400 system.
And the timing. The reports pin it down to the early morning hours, right?
Yeah.
At Adampur.
That's the reported time frame.
And the tactics themselves sound fascinating. Saturation strikes, basically firing a whole bunch of missiles really quickly.
That's the idea, yeah. Overwhelm the defenses. Plus, reports mention anti-radiation seekers on these missiles.
Which means they home in on the radar signals.
Precisely. So it sounds like a combined approach, not just trying to jam or suppress the radar that's SCA, suppression of enemy air defense, but actually destroy it. Dead. Destruction of enemy air defense.
So taking out the eyes and ears permanently, not just temporarily blinding them.
That seems to be the reported objective. And look, if these reports are accurate, and that's still a key point, we need confirmation. But if they are, this would be the first confirmed, operational takedown of an S-400 battery.
Which would be huge. Now, these tactics, there's talk of an exercise, Indus Shields 2023.
Yeah.
Any connection there?
Well, the reports suggest some striking similarities. They point to a sequence from that exercise that seems almost identical to what reportedly just happened.
Like what? What was the sequence?
According to the reports, you had J-10CE fighters providing air cover, then the JF-17C Thunder 3s coming in to launch these high-speed missiles.
The CM-400s.
The CM-400s, yes. And crucially, all supported by DA-20 aircraft doing electronic warfare, jamming radar, jamming communications.
Wow. So it really does sound like they might have rehearsed this exact playbook.
It certainly looks that way based on these accounts, like a dress rehearsal that just went live.
Okay, let's get into the hardware then. The planes, the missiles. Starting with the JF-17 Thunder, they were the main strike platform.
Reportedly, yes. Pakistan's Air Force is said to have around 100 JF-17s, a mix of Block 2 and Block 3. And yeah, they seem to be the key platform for launching these kinds of mass saturation attacks.
And the missile itself, the CM-400 AKG, this isn't just any old cruise missile, is it?
Oh, definitely not. The reports are calling it hypersonic. And the description, more like a miniature air-launched ballistic missile than a conventional cruise missile. I think that really captures it.
How so? What's the difference?
Well, think about its flight. It reportedly uses a rocket motor to boost up really fast, climbs way up high, and then dives down on the target at Mach 4.
Mach 4. That's incredibly fast. How does something moving that fast actually hit its target accurately?
It's got a pretty sophisticated guidance package, apparently. Starts with inertial navigation, then gets updates from satellite navigation. But the key part is the terminal phase, the final dive. It reportedly uses passive radar seekers.
Passive meaning it doesn't transmit anything itself, it just listens.
Exactly. It listens for the S-400 radar's own emissions, its voice, and homes in on that. Makes it perfect for hitting these high-value radar systems. And it's a standoff weapon fired from a distance.
Keeps the launch aircraft safer. Okay, and you mentioned the DA-20 electronic warfare planes. Sounds like they were pretty vital.
Absolutely critical. Based on these reports. They were apparently able to pinpoint the S-400 radar arrays from over 200 kilometers away.
Now,
well, they're reportedly fitted with a Chinese system, the JN-1F communication countermeasure system, and the reports mention something called a short baseline technique.
Okay, what's that?
Think of it like having two ears. You can tell where a sound is coming from because of the tiny difference in time it takes to reach each ear. This technique uses multiple receivers, precisely spaced, to do the same thing with radar signals, triangulate the source with high accuracy.
So they listened for the S-400, figured out exactly where it was,
Yeah.
and then passed that info to the fighters.
That's the reported flow. Coordinates fed via secure data links straight to the JF-17s, giving the CM-400s their targeting instructions.
And we shouldn't forget the J-10Cs providing cover.
Right. The reports mention them being there, using their own advanced radars, and carrying PL-15 air-to-air missiles, basically to ward off any Indian fighters trying to interfere.
It really stands out how much of this operation, as reported, leans on Chinese technology.
That's a really central point, isn't it? If these reports are accurate, it underscores the PAF's growing reliance on Chinese systems. Yeah. You've got the J-10C fighters, the PL-15 missiles, the DA-20 jammers, even their ZDK-3 early warning aircraft are mentioned, and of course the star of the show, the CM-400 AKG missile itself.
So the implication is maybe Beijing's hardware can now execute these complex end-to-end missions against, well, a top-tier Russian air defense system like the S-400.
That's certainly what it suggests, and it's a pretty significant claim about the state of play in military technology.
You can bet Western militaries are paying close attention, right, if this is confirmed?
Oh, absolutely. If verified, they'll be poring over the tactical details, the performance data. I mean, taking out an S-400, a system with a reach pushing 400 kilometers, that's no small feat.
Could this actually change how NATO and others think about SEAD operations? Suppression of enemy air defenses?
It really could. If this proves to be a viable tactic, it could definitely reshape doctrine. And, the reports even speculate about other conflicts. Could we see similar tactics tried elsewhere? Maybe Ukraine against Russian air defenses, if they can get good targeting data and have the right kind of high-speed weapons.
Interesting point. So, flipping it around, what would the Indian Air Force likely do in response to something like this, assuming it happened?
Well, you'd expect them to accelerate efforts to harden their S-400 sites. Protect them better.
How?
Reports suggest several possibilities. Maybe more decoys to confuse incoming missiles, spreading out the mobile launchers, making them harder to target all at once, integrating other systems like the shorter-range Pantsir S-1 for point defense, and definitely investing in better electronic countermeasures, fighting back against jamming, plus better camouflage techniques to hide the radar signatures.
It feels like this could genuinely shift the strategic balance there on the India-Pakistan border. I mean, if this relatively smaller Air Force, using partner tech, pulled this off, it reinforces that sort of underdog narrative.
It does. If Pakistan has shown they have a credible way to hit these high-end defenses, India might need to rethink where it bases its valuable assets, how close to the border, and for Pakistan. Maybe this gives them more confidence, leads to more assertive patrols. It definitely tests that traditional deterrence equation.
And the weapon itself, the CM-400 AKG, its reported success, really feels like it pushes us further into the hypersonic era of warfare.
I think that's right. This could be seen as, well, the start of a new chapter in how airstrikes are conducted. If hypersonic weapons like this prove effective and become more available,
then everyone will want them.
Exactly. You'll see pressure on air forces everywhere to field their own fast, long-range strike capabilities, which then drives a counter-response, right? More investment in missile defense, maybe directed energy, faster interceptors, and definitely tighter integration of electronic warfare in real time. The reports say this has firmly raised the stakes, and I think that's accurate. It's an offense-defense spiral.
And this capability didn't just appear overnight for Pakistan. The reports mention investment, procurement.
That's right. They reportedly bought 60 of these CM-400 AKG missiles back between 2017 and 2018. About $100 million worth. It shows planning.
And it connects back to the JF-17 program itself, doesn't it? The co-production aspect?
Yes, absolutely. The JF-17 Thunder is a joint venture, China and the Pakistan Aeronautical Complex, or PAC. And PAC reportedly builds a large chunk, like 58% of each airframe. That builds local expertise, helps with maintenance, and critically, it makes it easier to integrate new advanced weapons like this CM-400 onto their main fighter. It's a long-term strategic partnership paying off, potentially.
Okay, let's circle back one more time to the CM-400 AKG missile itself. Beyond just speed, what makes it technically advantageous, according to these reports?
Yeah.
You mentioned that quasi-ballistic profile.
Right. That flight path, high climb, steep dive at Mach 4, it's a different kind of threat compared to, say, a low-flying cruise missile. Traditional air defenses might be optimized for those sea skimmers. This high-diving approach might bypass some of those defenses.
So it sacrifices flying low for that high-altitude approach in terminal speed.
Seems to be the trade-off, yes. Maximize the launch aircraft's survivability by letting it fire from further away and higher up, and then rely on speed and angle of attack for penetration against those key radar emitters on the ground. It really turns the JF-17 into a potent saturation strike tool.
And there's an economic angle, too.
Yeah, the reports touch on that. Compared to some top-tier Western or Russian fighters and missiles, the JF-17 and the CM-400 AKG are reportedly relatively less expensive to buy and operate.
Which means they can afford more of them.
Potentially, yes. Larger stockpiles mean you can actually execute those saturation salvos, firing multiple missiles to overwhelm sophisticated defenses. It's a numbers game, partly.
So putting it all together, if these reports are verified, this is way more than just a regional incident. It could genuinely change how global powers view air power projection and defense. Especially for listeners tracking military tech trends, this could be a real watershed moment.
I think that's fair to say. A confirmed S-400 kill at Adampur using these methods would definitely reshape the immediate India-Pakistan dynamic, but also global thinking about hypersonic weapons, electronic warfare coordination, and the capability of Chinese exported systems. It suggests the Pakistan Air Force might have just shown a viable way to tackle premier air defenses. That's something defense planners worldwide will be studying very, very closely.
Right. So the key takeaway really is this reported success, if confirmed, using Chinese tech, novel hypersonic tactics, EW saturation, it marks a potentially significant moment.
Definitely. All those elements you mentioned, the missile speed, the EW role, the saturation approach, even the apparent link to exercises like Indy Shields, they all paint a picture of a complex, coordinated operation that warrants serious analysis.
And it leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? Thinking about this reported event, how might countries shift their military investments now? More focus on offense like hypersonic strike or doubling down on layered air defense? And what other tech races might this kick off beyond just the missiles themselves? Definitely something to keep thinking about regarding the future of global security.